Hi, and welcome back, freedom lovers, to Essential Talks, where you come for the conversation and you leave empowered. Today, I have with me Mitch from Futuristic Fitness, and we're going to get into some conversations. So, we're going to talk about basically when me and Mitch we opened up pretty early on in the game, and we're going to talk about what it was like for Mitch to open up and kind of go through that. So, Mitch, I'll get you to kind of introduce yourself. Let us know when you were in business, where your business is. So, those that don't know you will get a little understanding of where you are and where you're at. And then walk us through some of the earlier process of when you opened and what you had to deal with. So,
Yeah, of course. So my name is Mitch. Thanks for having me on, Jamie. So I go by Mitch. My first name's Colin, and I'm the owner of a futuristic fitness in Arthur. So pretty new business owner. I'm pretty young, so I've just turned 29. This is my first business that I opened up. So I decided to open up a fitness facility. I've had a number of different jobs throughout my kind of lifetime, different trades and stuff like that. I worked as a butcher for 5 years and then operated heavy equipment for a few years and have some management lead hand experience in one of my jobs where I was working with management for a little over a year. So fitness has always been kind of something to reground me, kind of, provide balance into my lifestyle. And I think it's a great outlet for most people to just kind of, jump in and make sure they're fit. A lot of, modern day living, I guess, habits that we develop. A lot of people I don't think are as fit as they should be. So yeah, my way to give back to the community and kind of starting up a fun business was opening a gym. So I had decided to open up a gym. I had signed the lease in February 2020 for my facility. It's just a brand new plaza that was built. So my place was put under construction. They were designing it to throw a gym in there. So obviously February 2020, I had signed the lease, and then I started to look around for equipment. It was interesting because a lot of the more competitive wholesalers that I had priced all my equipment from, a lot of them are supplied from China. So I mean, I remember going to just a few stores off the bat, going in and kind of looking for different equipment I had priced out, and most things were already on back order at this time because of what was already kind of going on in China. Didn't imagine, it rolling out the way it did here in Canada. You saw a lot of kind of things being blown up in the news, a lot of really odd videos I had seen at the beginning and stuff like that, where you're really just seeing some type of situation, in my opinion, that's being staged or some type of, largely staged event. I remember specifically one video that I thought was very odd, on top of like a hospital in China where there was people like doing seizures and there's just all these beds and you're like, what is going on here, right? But I didn't really, I guess I didn't catch on in regards to how our country would deal with it or how things would roll out in the future. So I really didn't think anything of it in regards to starting my business. So it was tough getting equipment, and then of course all the lockdown measures started to roll in come March here. And it was pretty much, things were put on hold. I was kind of trying to do what I can to get things in order, but it was very much a waiting game at that point. After the first lockdown, it was kind of game on. I was able to open in the summer of 2020. Just piece some pieces together here and there in terms of equipment. And yeah, so we had got things going in August of 2020. We opened the facility. Um, it was actually quite, I had the area where I picked my gym. I did a pretty good job. It's a small community, but that community doesn't have any type of fitness outlets. So at the beginning, I had a lot of support from the community. All kinds of customers. I reached like almost like 150 customers, which within a few months, which is pretty much, it was doing well. I couldn't complain. I thought, we're going to make a pretty good go of this. And then it was actually interesting because the summer was quite good in terms of turnout. And then things really started to change in October. October, if anyone, if you remember, Jamie, it was the time when we started dealing with that color coding system.
Yeah.
So I think specifically Doug Ford too had actually gone on the media and actually, there was like some type of spin class or something that he used as a specific example where there was, the spin place in the city. I forget the details, but he was almost trying to make it seem like fitness industries in general would be a place of risk. And it was interesting because when that color coding system came about, and you hear these things, kind of the fear being driven through the media once again. It was interesting because I had a lot of clients kind of things started to slow down right then. um, I knew kind of at the beginning that I was already going to stay open. I had explained this before in a previous podcast with you guys, but I know like it was early in April 2020 where I had already decided that I was going to stay open just because I had noticed a lot of different countries that were doing things quite different. There's a lot of countries that don't even have lockdowns. I mean, it does seem quite popular. You might see throughout the news that there's a lot of, countries that are going through the same motions that we are, like Australia, some countries in the UK, the States had lockdowns for a while. But realistically, there's a lot of countries that didn't go about this the same way, right?
Yeah.
You have most of the democratic type countries that have fallen into this type of routine, but a lot of the communist countries, they didn't have lockdowns. Their mandates and stuff, the regulations very different. Even the actual recording of the virus and stuff like that is done very differently in those countries. So I already knew at the beginning that there's something bigger going on here. It's not about a virus. There's something, and I already knew of essentially different agendas that had been rolling out or, already in the works. Everyone's heard of the New World Order and, type of Illuminati group and Bilderberg. And I used to do a lot of that research probably for 10 plus years leading up to starting up a business. And I guess it was always like a little interest of mine to do kind of that conspiracy theory type of research where I was just quite interested in government agendas and, the different research plots and plans that they're up to and the different technology they kind of are privy to. So I've kind of researched a lot of that stuff. And I guess that's what inclined me to look a little bit deeper into things when it first started rolling out. So, I mean, one of the big ones was like just looking into Japan. You would think with the age demographic of that country, generally the oldest age demographic, they have an average life expectancy, I should say, of like 85 years old. So that's more than any other country. I mean, the country's pretty dense in regards to the population. So, one of the densest overall. I mean, you have a few countries that are a little bit more dense in specific areas, but overall, Japan's quite dense across the board. So, I mean, like everything we're being told and what you would think in regards to a virus, like population density, the age demographic, all those things. You would think that's a country that's like at kind of greater risk in comparison, right? So I thought it was interesting because, just researching that back in April, I mean, all this data was kind of being recorded. They had very little numbers in comparison. They didn't have lockdowns and things like that. So that was one kind of red flag for me. And then I know a country that I've looked into in the past, just in terms of their education and their economy and stuff. Finland's always been a kind of one of the more interesting countries, in my opinion, one of my most favorite in terms of just the way that their economy and their society is developed. So that was another country I decided to look into. And again, it was they don't have lockdowns and things like that. So there are a few even democratic type based countries that don't even have these lockdowns, and they're dealing with things very differently. So okay, I thought that was interesting. So that's when I decided to, I wouldn't be locking down and I wouldn't be following these kind of orders, right? So I think a lot of people that kind of get lost and follow the rules, listen to your government and all these type of, lines you hear from the left side. I don't like to say right side and left side per se, but just trying to kind of throw an example out there. A lot of people are saying, trust the government, almost have this type of thought process where they should have your best interest at heart. But I mean, I think once you start to kind of get a broader outlook on the world, and you're not just stuck in your own little bubble, you start to kind of be able to siphon through truth quite quickly. So, I mean, that was where I was at the beginning of the lockdown. I just decided, things aren't making sense here. I wouldn't be following these lockdowns. It's not something I'm into, and I don't really think, based on common sense, it would make a difference. So,
when was the second lockdown for you, Mitch? Because for me, it was in around December. I think it was December 26th. When did you get the second lockdown for the fitness industry?
So the second technical lockdown was December. It was early December, Boxing Day. So December 26th, 2020. So I had decided to stay open. So that was the second lockdown. And even if the first lockdown, if my business was ready, I probably would have opened it halfway through just after I started looking into things. But it doesn't matter. I decided to open 2020. With a handful of, kind of the originals, right? You had a very small knit group of people that opened up that early. I mean, Adam Skelly was on the news of maybe a week or two before me. His situation was handled quite odd. Like it was just it was very extreme. I would say the things that rolled out. I didn't have anything really like that at the beginning. Like, it was odd because I stayed open 2020, December 23rd, and 26, sorry, the Boxing Day. I remember just putting a post on Facebook on like my community page, and it was crazy because that just blew up, and it not in a good way. I mean, I had just put a page, kind of the letter that I had on the door, and I had just taken a picture of it. And I had just mentioned that, my facility would stay locked essentially. We would be operating in a private capacity, and all my members would still be able to attend, and I would still be offering my services. And then it also stated too that obviously I would take on new clients. You just reach out to me through certain outlets. Always use Facebook, and then obviously by phone and email and stuff like that. So I was taking on new clients, and then I was just setting up through appointment only, and I was keeping my door locked just in preparation. Like, I didn't want to be, in the middle of a training and have, some crazy storm in, or even like have the cops just walk in unexpected. So I had thrown that on Facebook on a community page, and it was like hundreds of comments. And if it's a community of 2,000 people, so I mean, it was a lot for the community, I think. And it was a lot of negativity. I mean, I had a handful of people that did support me. Most of them are already members, and they know what fitness is all about. So they obviously prioritize their health, and they're thinking, well, I still want to work out. So they're kind of going to bat for me in a lot of these posts. But I mean, the community was just, what's that?
I was going to say, I think that's kind of like where the difference is from then till now. Back when we opened up, the support was there, but it was a lot less sparse. Whereas now everyone is so tired of everything that the support is over the top now.
Absolutely. And that's what's interesting is now you're not dealing with, I feel like the further we move along here, you're seeing a big difference in overall, how the police are treating things, how the public is viewing things, because you're seeing a narrative that just isn't making sense. So, I stayed open in the first lockdown, and I had, the second lockdown, provincial wide lockdown. And then, a lot of the community wasn't in support. I still had my members, and a lot of the community, some community members that did support me, but there was a lot of people that weren't in support. And then things have grown over time. I mean, I've always stayed open since the second lockdown, third lockdown, and then we're now in the fourth. So, I mean, each lockdown you get more support. Each lockdown things start to loosen up because, I mean, things just aren't adding up, things aren't making sense, and more people are waking up to, okay, something bigger is going on here, right? So it's completely different. I mean, this fourth lockdown, I haven't even had anyone come out to my facility at all, which I think is
Yeah.
interesting. Um, and I've gone through a lot of different motions over the last year and a half. It was interesting because the second lockdown, when I first stayed open, even the cop presence was quite low at the beginning. The odd one cop would come out here and there and come out to my facility, and then we would just talk back and forth. There was one cop that came in and he overstepped his boundaries a little, so we got a little heated out front, but the other police were fairly respectful. I mean, one random morning, I remember they had came out with a bunch of cruisers and kind of lined my windows, just trying to troll me for a few hours. That was a little bit, odd. And then, there was one police officer that thought he could just walk into my facility at the beginning. Even though my door was locked, I had just came in to kind of grab my ID, just to, he asked for my ID. I said, sure. I came in to grab my ID, and he had just grabbed the door and kind of, opened it up behind me and came in. And then, I kind of ordered him outside. We got into a little bit outside, and I just told him that I didn't invite him in. So he just engaged in an unlawful entry, stuff like that. And I mean, there was different legal stuff that I had got into as well, but I don't think there's as much of a place for that anymore. I mean, I feel like the movement now has grown to something so big that they're not going to be dealing with much of this on the law side per se. I know a lot of people, even during the third lockdown, they weren't getting the summons to court. There's a few different gym owners I had to help stay open. And I had just, explained some of the law tactics that I used, and they didn't even have to administrate any of that. It was quite easy for them to stay open, and they had a lot of support. And this is back in the third lockdown, so they just got 880 tickets. They marked trial on the back and then sent it back, sent it in, and I mean, they're just minor tickets, so you're not getting a summons to court. You're not getting kind of the over the top stuff. But it was interesting anyways, because the third lockdown in my jurisdiction anyways, they actually turned up the heat. So they were actually coming out to my facility full force with multiple staff sergeants and, cruisers. Like there would be 6-7 cruisers show up to my facility. They had done it twice where they really came in deep with a number of high-ranking officers. This is in the third lockdown. Literally right when the second I got the emergency order text message that I think most people got. It kind of went out like widespread to everyone. It was like, state of emergency, ding, 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 your phone goes off. I looked at my phone and I looked up and all the cops were driving into my facility. And this is at the beginning of the third lockdown. And it was a heavy police presence. So again, we just got into it once again out front, and I obviously just stood my ground. And then they came back, same thing, but with public health with them. It was the same thing. Bunch of police officers, bunch of cruisers, some unmarked. They had public health with them this time. And they stamped something on my door. It was interesting. They're trying to be quite intimidating. I remember the police officer actually pulled out a knife and actually cut off the tape, like as they're like putting it onto the door. I'm like, you don't really, it was just odd. The way he opened it too, he like kind of put it up and opened the knife kind of in the air. It was just very, very weird. It's like they were very much trying to intimidate me at this point. Even the one police officer told me that he was lucky he didn't demonstrate his full level of authority. And I just,
Wow.
I told him that he better be careful what he considers his full level of authority. And as soon as I said that, the cop stepped back and was saying, "Oh, well, I'm not threatening you. I'm not threatening you." So it's pretty interesting. I mean, they've tried to intimidate me at different times, but as soon as you stand up to them, they pretty much, they step off, right?
Yeah.
So they're just trying to trigger that kind of fear emotion in you. I think like a lot of these people, it's the same with the courts, and the experiences I've had with the courts is they just try to kind of intimidate you through fear. And when they realize that's not working, they kind of knock it off, right?
Yeah.
It seems like it's kind of like, I don't know. what these type of people are up to, or like they're into, right? Is the more the fear type stuff. So yeah, so I just kind of stood my ground. They didn't come at all throughout the third lockdown, so business was as usual. I didn't see the cops anymore. um, and yeah, so I actually started issuing them paperwork and documents like notices of liability and stuff like that. And then they actually stepped back after that, and I didn't hear from them at
And,
all
and
anymore. So
that worked for me too. As soon as I gave them all the notice of liabilities, they haven't returned to my facility as well. So yeah, no, and it's crazy because you keep talking about the different number of lockdowns, but technically we're still in the first one. We're just in different phases because they never lifted anything fully, right? So we've kind of just been in this overly extended one lockdown with just different levels to it. So,
yeah,
but
yeah, for sure.
and now what I'm watching and I've seen on videos and everything else, they're nowhere near the same as kind of the treatment that I went through or yourself has gone through. And you said you were helping some other business owners. Have they had any encounters with any of this, or
So
was
it's
this?
like 5 different people that I've helped in total. Well, I've gotten an outreach from, a number of different businesses. There's five I know, about five. I mean, I can just count on one hand. The people that I know for sure have opened, and I did coach quite a bit at the beginning. And I mean, they haven't dealt with anything. They haven't gotten any summons. Things have been very laid back. They've had a lot of support. I know one fitness owner, and specifically, he's in the Sarnia area, so he triggered a whole tidal wave in there in Sarnia. His name is he owns Karuna Fitness. His name is Ron. And
Yeah,
I mean, pretty much all of Sarnia opened up at that point. This was,
yeah,
again, the third provincial wide lockdown. Like, it has been, one big thing conclusive. But when they called the third provincial wide lockdown, Ron had reached out to me. And I mean, he created a tidal wave in his area, because when you're in a bigger area, I'm in a small
yeah,
community, but when you're in a bigger area, you force other people to stay open as well, because you're going to take their clientele, right? That's the way it works. So, when you're in Sarnia area and you're competing with 3 different gym owners and you open up, well, everyone starts flooding your facility, right? Because nobody really cares. They just want a place to work out, right?
yeah,
So even with me, like with this fourth provincial wide lockdown, that just kind of got called. It's like all kinds of people are reaching out to my facility. So it's kind of shining this ray of hope, because at the beginning throughout this, like, I didn't plan for this shit, right? Like, when I first opened in a town of 2,000 people here in Arthur, like, I can't, survive with ongoing lockdowns and all this crazy bullshit. Like, I would have been so far in debt, from the beginning. If I were to follow this stuff, it would be astronomical. Like, I would never be able to recover. I
yeah,
mean, in terms of overhead, like, I keep my overhead quite low because I paid for all my equipment and stuff like that. But I mean, it's still rent and the bills. It's still up there to about $5,000 or so, right? So it's quite a lot of money when you're over. And again, I don't have income either. Like, this is kind of how I pay my bills outside of
yeah.
the business too. So I mean, you have living expenses and then you have business expenses. It would the debt load would be crazy. So I mean, I decided to stay open just to do what I could, right? I knew things weren't right, and because just financially, I mean, it would be insane to go through these lockdowns, especially for how long they've been going on now.
Exactly.
So, I mean, with this fourth lockdown, I've had way more support. It's been quite good in terms of turnout and stuff like that. And, I do, most of the people that have reached out to me this fourth lockdown, I mean, I've told almost everyone. I've with a few people, I've gotten into some nitty gritty type of information, but I honestly just tell them, just open up, because you probably won't even have to really deal with police. And if you do, it'll be minor. Most people that I did coach to stay open, they haven't dealt with much in terms of enforcement.
And
I
and
have
same
Yep, go ahead.
I was gonna say the same with myself because I'm still coaching a bunch of businesses on how to open, and there's a woman in my area. She's got a pool hall, and she wound up with a liquor board there, but no police, no nothing else. She's wound up with a health board there with no police. So now they're showing up without the police, right? Whereas before, with yourself, myself, we'd have health board, police, bylaw, all rolled into one tidy package, right? And multiple, five, six, seven of them sometimes. And here, the woman in the same area I'm in, one or two at a time, and the police aren't even going with them for some of the places. So they've kind of backed off a lot, right? And it's not nearly as intimidating if you're standing there with two health inspectors or even a health inspector, a bylaw officer. Whereas before you had six people, it's all on intimidation. I think they've laxed off now, so it's not nowhere near as intimidating.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, there's a huge difference in regards to when I first opened and up till now, right? Like, even in the big one was the community, because all the businesses need, you need support in order to survive, right? So, even when I first stayed open in 2020, I mean, things have been tough, even throughout the lockdowns, because, you're kind of the first person, you're trying to set the pace for everyone. And then, of course, like, because you're one of the first businesses, people don't put themselves in your shoes, right? The majority of people are employees, they're not business owners, right? So I mean, they just look at you as making this decision, or, oh my god, he's putting the whole community at risk. Like, that's the type of energy I got from most people. But that's really cooled off. That went away in the third provincial wide lockdown. I mean,
Yeah,
and I should almost be putting dates on this, because again, it's hard to know which lockdown is which.
yeah,
But
exactly.
um,
So many is confusing.
yeah, but I mean, even halfway through 2021, right? Like, you got kind of halfway through 2021, and I didn't deal with any type of pushback from the community. It was all just support. It was all
Yeah,
positive. Things
I
have
think
really
that's
shifted now.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think that's when the big shift happened was in around uh, May, June-ish of 2020, and it was like everything just went to go to the positive note, and especially now, people are so done with everything. They just want businesses to open up. They want to go and support you. They want to do. They just want to do what they do without any
Yeah.
restrictions, right? So,
Yeah,
um,
so I know, like, with what I do, like, just to get jumping on some group posts and stuff like that, like, even with my boot camp, like, I just ran a boot camp class or whatever. I made a quick little ad for to launch boot camp. I shared it to like three different groups that are kind of have the same type of opinion and perspective, and my boot camp class just fills up like that, right? So a lot of people are traveling now from Aurora, Fergus, and stuff like that in surrounding areas where I would have never had that before. So that's kind of one reason why I've been able to survive too, is now a lot of overwhelming support in regards to those who do stay open. I mean, that's really where we're gonna have to get to, just defying this, right? Because it's going to continue. It's going to continue. I have a lot of, I can theorize about quite a bit, and kind of, I think we're very much our democracy is it's, and I had kind of touched on this before. You have a lot of the majority of democracy countries are dealing with the same situation. And it feels like our government is somewhat on a kamikaze mission at this point, and they're just seeing how long they can kind of drive the countries into the ground. I mean, the States is very interesting as well. I mean, we both have these leaders in place that are just incompetent, to say the least. I mean, we have Justin Trudeau that is just, he's just a complete puppet. He's a tool, in my opinion. And then you have Joe Biden in the States, and he's just another one that's just like, oh my god, like, you could talk about the different, options, or if Donald Trump is better. Like, I'm not really a supporter of any of them, to be honest, but if there was one better leader, I mean, definitely there's better than Joe Biden. So it's just interesting how we're in these scenarios where things are just, they seem like they're destined to fail. Like it just seems like what we're going through is just gonna kind of destroy our democracy as we see it, right? And then possibly leave us open to a lot of different threats. So that's kind of the way I see it, is where are we really heading and what's really going on here. The narrative with the whole COVID thing, I mean, that's collapsing, and I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never claimed that it's not real or inaccurate. Like, I'm not an expert, but what I do know is when I just look around and I try and reflect on things based on how I experience them, based on my reality, it's really just a flu season and a cold season we're dealing with. You experience these times in terms of different changes in our climate. Really, I mean, you have the changing of seasons, and then you deal with the flu season, and it happens every year in Canada. Nothing's new here. I mean, in terms of COVID, I mean, you have some years that are more severe than others in terms of symptoms and stuff like that, and we've always dealt with that. I really don't see much of a difference in terms of risk. It's almost like they just, they're using this virus flu season essentially, just to come up with a risk factor to say that they're trying to keep us safe, but that's really not what's going on here, and that's kind of why I've been more or less intrigued to kind of look deeper into what's really going on here. And I think, most businesses, I think we just all have to stay open at this point. There's nothing to fear. And I honestly, I feel like those who continue to follow these crazy regulations and lockdown, I feel like they're like, I don't know how you would be able to survive, right? That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Unless you're one of those, and I know some, I mean, corporation type of facilities, or people that want to take more of the corporate approach and they support the government and stuff like that. And, maybe they've made a deal with you behind the counter to kind of pay you off. Like I know places like Good Life and stuff like that. But fact of the matter is, government definitely, I mean, they're not willing to work with most business owners, right? So most middle class type people were kind of being left out to dry. So I mean, if I had to give anyone a message of just an overall message, I guess it's just to stay open, and there's really not much holding you back. It's all in your head, especially now. It's more support now um, than before. So I mean, yeah, I mean, that's just my situation specifically. Is I'm doing way better now that I've stayed open and that I kind of stood up for myself. It's been a good learning. It's been a good lesson overall as well. Um, just kind of learn, it's taught me definitely to have some thicker skin. I mean, through going
Yeah.
through the motions and stuff like that, like I kind of care a whole lot less of what people think about me, and I've been able to realize that kind of I am, a stronger one when you reflect on society and things like that. But I think everyone can kind of find that strength, right? And you just gotta, pull it out of you and take that stand. And a lot of what we're dealing with, it's all just fear. It's like smoke and mirrors type hokey pokey, man. It's crazy. It's not even, there's no real laws that even support this. It's all just bylaws, mandates, and it's all crap. So that's what's interesting as well, is you start to learn more of that. I've kind of gone down the rabbit hole with learning the law here in Canada, but even that is it's crazy to say the least. There's so many loopholes within loopholes, and um, it feels now again we're just almost like destined to fail here. I don't want to seem like it's like I'm trying to portray a negative message here, but it just seems like at this point we're getting driven, and we're getting driven off a cliff here. It just seems crazy, everything that's rolling out. um yeah, and I think we just have to stand up for ourselves and try to preserve what we have here. And obviously the worse it's going to get, the worse we let this continue, right? So it's not benefiting anyone's mental health, overall health. You have our economy that's quickly heading more in a negative direction. People's overall health, obesity statistics and overall health of individuals is becoming, it's going down the tube. I think a lot of people can reflect on that, and it's just you have to stand up to it, right? It's not even all about money in terms of, I mean, that's obviously a big, because everyone has to pay to survive, but for me
Yeah,
it's just,
exactly.
yeah, and for me it's it's what we have to do to kind of preserve what we have, and
That's
hopefully
right.
hold our government accountable, and then try and shape a new future for us, I guess, here.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of room for opportunity. So, and a lot of that opportunity, it presents itself when we learn to stand up to what we're dealing with here. So,
Yeah, I'm gonna add into the one point you were talking about a little bit earlier. There is where you kind of said, I don't want to sound negative, but it's almost like we're being driven off a cliff. And I'm gonna have to agree with you because that's exactly what is happening. As the government is pushing small and medium-sized businesses right off of a cliff, and they're starting with what I call all the feel-good businesses. So your hair salons, gyms, restaurants, tattoo studios, any of the personal care. Those are all the things that actually make you feel good, and
yeah,
they're starting with our industries first, and they are pushing us off the cliff. And that's why more than ever right now we have to start opening our businesses and pushing back, because you got to refuse to get pushed off that cliff. So we have a lot of momentum that's happening in Canada right now. We got the trucker convoy, and we have the fitness rebellion that we're doing with We Are All Essential, and we're trying to get the businesses to lift up. We want restaurants to open as well. All of the personal cares open up, no restrictions, just open your doors. You got into business to do business, now start doing business. You know what I mean? Stop with the fear. Restaurants are terrified to lose their liquor license. If you get, in almost any town or smaller city or even medium sized city, you get, 20 to 50 restaurants open up, right? The liquor board comes by, just tell them, here, take my license. You know what I mean? You can run your restaurant without alcohol, even if it's for a short time. But the point I'm getting at is, once there's enough of you that stand up, the liquor board is not going to take away all of your licenses. In fact, the reason why we have alcohol in takeout now is because it was lobbied against, because of the drop in alcohol sales. So you have lobby groups like the liquor store and the beer store that are actually going to fight for you. But now that we got the momentum of the truckers, the support is out there, is coming out in droves. So you need to open up, get your business open. We're starting with the fitness industry. We have the fitness rebellion going on. If you have a gym, open your doors. By all means, open your doors. Our society needs it. Your community needs it. We all need it. If you don't know what to do, you can join We Are All Essential. That's weareallessential.ca. You can register your business. You don't have to go public with it right away. There's many different avenues that you can learn, different laws, get to know your rights. You can go down the legal road, common law road. Just learn your rights. Once you're comfortable, you can register the business and then open up your business, of course. Myself, and I know Mitch, he's always open to any business, getting a hold of him or myself. We are ready to coach anybody, get you standing on your feet and get you rocking. So is there any last comments you'd like to make, Mitch, for anyone new that's kind of on the fence about opening their business?
well, I guess just touching on, just the idea of just open up, and I think now we have more support than ever. A lot of our, our essential groups and like the convoy you had mentioned has grown substantially, and a lot of overall support has grown substantially. So we're at a point in time now where we need to kind of just stand up, open our business, and support each other. Um, I think also I just wanted to outline the fact, different like tickets that you get, and the whole liquor board license stuff. I mean, this is the way I reflect on it as well, and this is the way I've been reflecting on it just recently throughout the courts and different dealing with police and studying the criminal code and things like that. A lot of the government and police and these people, they're not even following their own rules. I mean, their own laws that they write, they break them each and every day. So
Mhm.
what really holds you to making having to follow them, right? Like they can give you tickets and things like that. They can take your liquor license away. But I mean, when you just choose not to engage with them, it doesn't really matter, right? You can still sell liquor without a license. I mean, it's kind of this whole idea that we have in our head where you have to follow these rules. But I mean, if they're just going to ticket you anyways and try and close your business down, then what do you have to lose, right? So I think at this point we have to start thinking that, in that way, where stop looking at all the consequences or what could go wrong, because really it's just smoke and mirrors. Just open up, and we need to hold our government accountable, because again, a lot of their laws they break each and every day. So and
Yeah.
we're seeing that more now than ever. So yeah, I would just encourage everyone to open up. I mean, we have all kinds of support, and me and Jamie are definitely here to help. And again, it's not really, I don't think most businesses at this point will have to deal with too much when they do open up. I think it'll be pretty slow going, pretty easy going for most people. I think a lot of police and people that would try to enforce things at this point in time, even a lot of them, I think, are in support of staying open and standing up for yourself. So that's the message I get, anyways. So yeah, I mean,
Awesome.
let's open up, guys. Thanks for having me on, Jamie. I think that's all I wanted to touch on tonight.
Awesome. That's great. So the other thing I'm going to mention is stand in your truth. When you stand in your truth, you're going to get rewarded in so many different ways. Other thing I'm going to mention is we are all essential. We're also looking for volunteers. The more shoulders we have, the better. So if you want to get involved but you don't know how, become a volunteer, and you can help us out a great deal. It's a great support team for business owners that are trying to open up. Also, subscribe to this podcast. You can get it every time it's out, and be one of the first to have it. We're starting to do a lot more lives now, especially with the Fitness Rebellion. So I'm going to say good night. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Yeah, have a good night, guys.